As he kind of started trying to speak, she found that he would always just babble to nothing and no one. She didn't really worry too much about her son or the things that he would do until he kind of started walking. She would notice he would always kind of crawl over to this huge mirror that they have in their house. He actually fully pulled himself up once he got over there, and he starts to fall backwards, but instead of like falling on his butt, he points at the mirror and says, "No, you stop it." And that's when she notices he's looking at something that she can't see. Teresa decides to take her son Alex to a park that's a little bit further away than she would normally travel to. They have an amazing day at the park. It's super fun, but surely the sun starts to go down and she kind of calls him over to where she's sitting, and when he approaches her, she realizes he looks really kind of upset and down. Basically, he comes up to her son Alex, and he says, "Mama, who is A?" He says a very specific name that has a specific meaning to her, but she doesn't catch it straight away. She says, like, "Our cousin A?" Or like, "Your baby cousin A?" Like, who are you thinking of? And he kind of like shakes his head and he's like, "No, that's not it." And he says to her, "Mommy, why didn't you tell me I had a brother named A?" And it sends chills all the way up and down my body, because in that moment, Teresa was like, oh my God. Because there was something she had never told Alex before. She didn't even know what to say to him in that moment. She just basically picked him up and carried him to the car like a zombie, because she couldn't understand how her son knew something she had never told him. Teresa knew when she got pregnant with Alex, like she knew. She and Alex's father had taken so many pregnancy tests and they all came back negative, and she was just so confused because she knew she was pregnant. A few weeks after all of these tests came back negative, she started to kind of show signs of miscarrying, and she just was devastated in that moment because she knew something wasn't right. And so she went to a doctor who then referred her to a specialist so she could get an ultrasound done, because he kind of thought instead of a miscarriage, it was probably something more like ovarian cysts or, you know, something else. So when she goes in for the ultrasound, she's like a train wreck. She's so nervous, so anxious. So basically at this appointment, instead of doing the ultrasound, the doctor just does like a pelvic exam on her. The doctor was like, "Don't get pregnant for a few months. Here's how to take care of yourself, like this and this and this." She was so heartbroken. But then 3 weeks after this day, she went back to the doctor. She basically felt like she had the flu. And upon going to the doctor, they were basically like, "Before we give you any medication, take a pregnancy test, because we always just have to be sure." And she was like, "Well, I'm not pregnant," but she took one anyways. After a few minutes, she was called into a room where a very excited and friendly nurse let her know that she was in fact going to be a mother. She didn't really understand how this was possible because she had shown signs of a miscarriage and she had never been shown the baby, so she didn't know if this was a new baby or what was going on. Basically, the nurse there made her an appointment with her regular doctor. During this appointment, he does the ultrasound, and that's when it hits everybody that this was still the first pregnancy, but there was an empty sac along with her son, Alex. So basically, Alex had a twin that was gone and that had been miscarried, but Alex was still in the womb. And so, you know, she had given him a name, which was A. That same name that Alex came up to her on the playground and was like, "Why didn't you tell me I had a brother named A?" That was the name. So this immediately just had her like in chills 24/7, because she was like, "Oh my God, like, my son could not know about his twin that I've never told him about, because at that age, how can you understand?" So he didn't know. So fast forward a few weeks after the incident at the park, everything's going normally and he has a night terror basically. And she walks into the room and she's like, "Hey buddy, like, can I help you go back to sleep?" And he comes over to her and he kind of lays his head in her lap and he says, "No, mommy, A helps me go back to sleep when I'm asleep. He helps me not be afraid." That's when she realized who he had been talking to all along. She tries to think of a logical explanation for this in the moment. She kind of asks him like, "Sweetie, what does A look like?" And Alex tells her, "Mommy, he looks just like me." And he tells her, "He's just a little taller than me and his hair is a different color, but mommy, you should know what he looks like. He's my brother." And she is just stunned. She is also heartbroken in that moment. She kisses him goodnight and she goes and sits in the living room and she just cries and she thinks about her sweet baby A that had never made it to this world, and she just knows in her heart that it's the truth, that Alex is telling her the truth. She thinks now that he was talking to his brother in the mirror. He would say to his brother, no, you stop it. And he would talk to someone in the mirror standing right next to him. That's because his brother was supposed to be beside him going through life, and he wasn't there physically, but he was obviously there spiritually. So now Alex is a happy, healthy 11-year-old boy, and he started to slowly grow out of his night terrors, but his brother A still visits him in the dream world all of the time. Deep down, she really hopes that she'll be able to see her son A one day, that is always with her son Alex, but you know, she's just grateful that Alex is able to experience his brother even though he never was in the real world. I love you guys very much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.